I need you to pretend to love me for 3 months. She came to me with a contract, her eyes full of someone else. I knew she was looking through me at the ghost of past love, an illusion she could never have. But she didn't know that the illusion was me. 3 years ago, I left without a word. Now, I was back with a different name. As I signed a contract, I wondered how long it would take for her to finally see me for who I really was. I stared at the agreement Claire Emerson pushed across the table. Standard printer paper, Times New Roman, size 12 font. Cold. Impersonal. It spelled out the terms for Party A and Party B, rights and obligations. The core of it was simple. I, Ethan White, was to play the role of her contract husband for a period of 3 months. The compensation was obscene, enough for a regular guy like me to skip the next 20 years of hustling. She sat across from me, a faint trace of pink lipstick left on the rim of her coffee cup. During this time, you'll be required to accompany me to all family gatherings and necessary social functions. In front of others, you need to act like you're in love with me. When she said the word love, her eyelashes fluttered. Her gaze landed on my face, but it felt like it was passing right through me, fixed on something far away. I knew who she was seeing, a shadow she'd carried in her heart for a long time. Me. But it was a me from 3 years ago. Back then, my name was just not Ethan White. I was the broke kid from the old neighborhood who got into a fight for her, the one who sat with her on a rooftop and watched the stars. Then I left. Not a word, not a note. Now, I'm back with a new identity, sitting right here. In her eyes, I'm just a stand-in, a guy whose profile looks a little like him. The irony was thick enough to choke on. I need a husband to deal with my family, she said, lifting her cup, trying to keep her tone flat. And you are a good fit. I didn't answer right away. My fingers traced the cool edge of the paper. My mind flashed back to years ago, to her tugging on my sleeve, her eyes shining. Can we stay together forever? The girl who said that, and the heiress sitting before me now, trying to buy companionship, were two different people. Time's a real bastard. It can change everything. Why me? I heard myself ask. My voice was a little rough. She paused for a few seconds. Then she looked up, meeting my eyes directly. Because you look like someone. Your mannerisms, the way you talk sometimes. Especially the line of your jaw from the side. She hesitated, as if searching for the right words. Looking at you, it makes things a little easier. Her words were like a tiny needle, a small, irritating prick. It didn't hurt, but it stung. I almost asked her, Claire, look closer. I am him, but I swallowed the words. It wasn't time. Not yet. I picked up the pen, and in the space for Party B, I signed Ethan White. The pen strokes were heavy. Deal, I said. The paperwork was handled quickly. It was an overcast day when we got the marriage certificate. Claire glanced at it once before shoving it into her purse, her expression unreadable. You'll stay at my condo. The guest room is ready for you, she said as she drove, me in the passenger seat. The car smelled of her perfume, a light, cool scent, like fresh-cut grass after the rain, with a hint of distance. We didn't speak the rest of the way. Her condo was huge, decorated in a minimalist, cool-tone style. It was sparsely furnished, which made it feel a bit empty. She pointed to her room. You're in here. Then she pointed to the master bedroom. I'm over there. The boundaries were drawn, sharp and clear, about what I expected. I brought my single duffel bag inside. The room was nice, with an en-suite bathroom, a major upgrade from the tiny, rundown studio I was renting. Here's the schedule, she said, handing me a tablet. My plans for this week and the near future are on here. The events you need to attend are marked in red. Also, she added, don't screw up in front of my parents. I nodded. Got it. She seemed like she wanted to say something else, but her phone rang. She walked out to the balcony to answer it. Her voice drifted back, laced with a bit of impatience. Mom, I met him. He's nice. Yeah, I know. I stood in the middle of the room, feeling out of place. It was a strange sensation, legally living in a woman's home, but feeling like a temp actor waiting for the director to yell action, so I could start performing my part as the loving husband. She came back inside after the call, not looking pleased. We're having dinner at my parents' house tonight. My dad wants to meet you. She looked at me. Are you ready? I forced a slight smile. What do I need to prepare for? For example, they'll probably ask how we met. We'll say, a mutual friend introduced us. What do you do for work? I'm a freelancer. I take on graphic design projects. That part, at least, was true. She looked me up and down. That outfit won't work. It's too casual. She glanced at her watch. Let's go. I'll take you to buy something decent. Her tone left no room for argument. Fine by me. The sponsor has spoken. I followed her out the door. Lesson 1 of being a stand-in. Start with the packaging. She took me to a boutique on Oak Street where I didn't recognize any of the brand names. Everything just looked expensive. She was a fast shopper, her fingers gliding across a rack of clothes before pulling out a few items. Try this. And this. She shoved the clothes into my arms and pushed me toward a fitting room. I came out wearing the first outfit. She was sitting on a plush sofa and looked up, her brow furrowed slightly. No, change. I went back in and changed again. This time, she stood up and walked over, adjusting the collar of my shirt. Her fingers, cool to the touch, brushed against the skin on my neck. She was standing close, and that cool, grassy scent of her perfume was stronger. But I could tell her focus was entirely on the clothes, not on the man wearing them. Turn around, she said. I turned. It's okay, she said, taking a step back. The shoulders are a little tight, though. She muttered to herself, You're a bit broader than he was. He, of course, meant me. I laughed bitterly to myself. It's been 3 years. I'd better have changed a little. We settled on a few outfits. She paid with her credit card without batting an eye. The total was more than I used to make in several months. I felt like I was wearing a costume as I got back in her car, a whole new skin. That evening, we drove out to her family's mansion in Winnetka. Her parents were polite, but their politeness was layered with scrutiny. Her dad asked about my family, my career prospects. I stuck to the script we'd rehearsed, answering with a calm confidence I didn't entirely feel. Claire sat beside me, occasionally jumping in. Ethan is very creative. He's building his own business, so his schedule is flexible. As she said this, her hand rested naturally on my arm, a performance for her parents. The muscles in my arm tensed at her touch. She must have felt it, because she quickly withdrew her hand. A good actress, she knew when to hold back. During dinner, her mom put some roast chicken on her plate, then added a piece to mine. Claire's been spoiled by us. You'll have to be patient with her from now on. I nodded. Don't worry, ma'am. Under the table, Claire kicked me gently. It took me a second, then I corrected myself. Mom, don't worry. Saying the word mom felt foreign and stiff on my tongue. Her parents exchanged a look and smiled, not pressing the issue. I guess I passed that test. On the way back, she drove, looking tired. You did all right today, she said, a rare compliment. Thanks, boss. I watched the city lights streak past the window. The city was so big, and we were like two separate islands, temporarily brought together by an absurd agreement. From now on, in front of my parents, call them mom and dad. Don't mess it up. Okay. And, she said, turning to me at a red light, I have a college reunion next week. You're coming with me. More acting. What do you think? She raised an eyebrow. Article 3 of the agreement. Fulfill all public spousal duties. And try to smile more, she added. He used to smile a lot. The light turned green, and she faced forward again. I leaned back against the seat and didn't answer. The smiling, she remembered, died 3 years ago. The reunion was in a private room at a high-end restaurant downtown. The moment we walked in, a wave of noise and energy hit us. The room was full of well-dressed men and women. The chatter died down for a second as they saw Claire walk in with me, and all eyes turned in our direction. Curious glances, probing stares, and a few that were just looking for gossip. Claire, who's this? Aren't you going to introduce us? A woman in a sequin dress spoke up first, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. Claire put on a perfectly measured smile and looped her arm through mine. This is my husband, Ethan White. Wow, you really got married? I heard rumors, but I didn't believe it. When did this happen? You kept it under wraps. Congratulations. A chorus of voices washed over us. I could feel Claire's hand tighten on my arm. She was nervous. I played my part and smiled, nodding at the group. Hi, everyone. After we sat down, the questions kept coming. So how did you two meet? Who asked who out? Claire glanced at me, signaling that I should answer. I picked up my glass of water and took a sip. A friend set us up, I said, then paused. I guess you could say I pursued her. Under the table, Claire gave me a light kick, as if to say, good answer. Oh, so what do you do, Ethan? You must be something special to win over our beautiful Claire, another man, this one with glasses, asked. His tone was a little off. I'm a freelancer. I do some design work. My voice was even. Oh, freelance is nice. Flexible, the man with glasses said with a noncommittal smile. Just then, a man who had been quiet in the corner looked up and studied my face. Hey, this might be out of line, he said, pushing his glasses up. And no offense, Ethan, but you look really familiar. Something about you. It reminds me of someone we used to know. He looked at Claire. Claire, do you remember the guy who... Well, the guy who disappeared. The room went quiet. Several people's eyes darted between Claire and me. The smile on Claire's face faded. She said nothing. My stomach dropped. Here we go. I put down my glass, my voice low but clear enough for everyone to hear. Who's that? I put on an expression of mild curiosity, mixed with just the right amount of confusion. I looked at Claire. A friend of yours? I don't think you've mentioned him. Claire took a deep breath. When she looked up again, her composure was back. An old classmate. We lost touch a long time ago. She expertly changed the subject, raising her glass. Come on, everyone, let's not just talk. Let's have a drink. The conversation shifted, but for the rest of the evening, Claire was noticeably quieter. She would occasionally stare at me, lost in thought. I knew that name had dredged up memories for her. By the time the party broke up, it was late. A cool wind had picked up outside. She tossed me the car keys. You drive? I'm a little tired. I caught them and held the passenger door open for her. She slid in, leaned her head against the backrest, and closed her eyes. We drove in silence for a while. The radio was playing some old, melancholic song. Ethan, she said suddenly, her eyes still closed. Yeah. Have you ever had someone that you desperately want to forget, but you just can't? My grip tightened on the steering wheel. I guess so, I said softly. She didn't press further, as if she'd only been thinking out loud. After a long pause, so long I thought she'd fallen asleep, she whispered, almost like a sigh, the back of that guy's head. It looked so much like him. I didn't respond. I was focused on driving, keeping the car steady. Let look like him. For now, I was Ethan White. Life under the contract was calmer than I expected. Most of the time, we did our own thing. She was busy with her company, gone from early morning until late at night. I worked from home on my design projects, tapping away at my laptop. On the rare occasions we had to appear as a couple, we slipped into our roles as the loving husband and wife with practiced ease. Our performance was getting better and better. At her dad's birthday party, I'd put food on her plate, and she'd smile at me. Everyone around us would comment on what a beautiful, happy couple we were. Only we knew that the moment we were behind closed doors, we were just roommates, and not particularly close ones at that. Sometimes she'd come home late from work and find me asleep on the living room sofa, my laptop still glowing. She would gently shake me awake. Go to bed. You'll catch a cold out here. Her voice was flat, like she was reading from a manual. I'd rub my eyes, mumble an okay, and carry my laptop back to the guest room. The only thing lingering in the air was the faint smell of wine or perfume from her clothes. We'd pass like ships in the night, leaving no trace. But there were exceptions, like the night of the thunderstorm. The thunder was so loud it shook the windows. I was half asleep when I heard a soft, persistent knocking at my door. I got up and opened it. Claire was standing there in her pajamas, clutching a pillow. Her hair was a mess, and her face was pale in the dim light of the hallway. The thunder, she said, her voice hoarse. Can I stay in here for a little while? I paused for a second, then stepped aside to let her in. She didn't get on the bed or sit in the chair. She just sank to the floor, sitting on the rug and hugging her knees. A flash of lightning lit up the room, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. Her shoulders trembled. That's when I remembered. She was terrified of thunderstorms. Years ago, on a night just like this, she had run to my place, soaked to the bone, looking like a scared kitten. I had held her then and told her not to be afraid, that I was there. Now, I poured her a glass of warm water. Here, I sat on the floor a few feet away from her, giving her space. Thanks. She clutched the glass, her fingers white. The only light in the room was a small night light, casting long shadows. The thunder rumbled outside. We sat in silence for a long time. After a while, the thunder softened to a distant rumble, and the rain became a steady drumming against the window. She seemed to have calmed down. When I was a kid, she began, her voice low, there was a storm once. I was home alone, and the power went out. I was so scared. I've been like this ever since. I knew about that time. Her parents had been fighting. They both stormed out, locking her inside by herself. She had called me, crying, saying, I'm scared. I climbed through her window and stayed with her all night. She probably thought I didn't remember any of that. Or rather, she assumed that this Ethan White could never have known. It's over now, I said, keeping my voice as neutral as possible. She turned her head, looking at me in the dim light. Ethan, sometimes. She paused. The way you talk, it really sounds like him. Like who? I asked, playing dumb. Someone who was very important to me. She didn't elaborate. She put the glass on the floor and stood up. The storm's passed. I went back to my room. She walked to the door, then stopped. Thank you for tonight. Then she slipped out, closing the door softly behind her. The room was empty again, except for the faint, lingering scent of her perfume. I lay back down, but sleep wouldn't come. When you play a part for so long, you start to get confused. Which one was the real me? The Ethan White of today, or the E in her memory? 6 days ticked by. 1 month of the contract was gone. One afternoon, I was at home working on a design when the doorbell rang. The security camera showed an elderly woman I didn't recognize. She was dressed simply but neatly. I opened the door. Ma'am, can I help you? The woman looked at me, her eyes widening with emotion, her lips trembling. Is that you? It's Mrs. Peterson, from the old neighborhood. A cold dread washed over me. Mrs. Peterson. She watched me grow up, and she was one of the very few people who knew about me and Claire. I never thought she would find me here. My first instinct was to deny it. Ma'am, I think you have the wrong person. My name isn't... She frowned, stepping closer to get a better look. No, it can't be wrong. Your eyes, the scar on your chin. I'm the one who patched you up when you fell out of that tree. You're E, she insisted with the certainty of old age. I started to panic. Claire could be home any minute. She couldn't find out like this. Ma'am, I'm really not who you think I am. Are you sure you? Who is it? Claire's voice came from behind me. My entire body went rigid. Why was she home so early today? Claire walked up beside me, looking at the old woman with a questioning expression. And you are? Mrs. Peterson's face lit up when she saw Claire. Claire, it's you, isn't it? You've grown into such a beautiful young woman. Claire was even more confused now, looking back and forth between us. Do you know each other? My mind was racing, my scalp tingling. Oh, I think this woman has us confused with someone else, I said quickly, trying to give Mrs. Peterson a look that begged her to play along. Ma'am, were you perhaps looking for the Jacksons? I think they live in the next building over. Mrs. Peterson looked at me, then at Claire, and a flicker of understanding crossed her face. Her expression fell, and she sighed. Maybe my old mind is playing tricks on me. I've gotten the wrong person. She mumbled, giving me one last complicated look that made my chest ache. I'm so sorry to have bothered you, young man. She turned and shuffled away toward the elevator. Her shoulders were slumped. Claire watched her go, then looked at me. That was weird. She didn't seem to think much more of it and went inside. I stood at the door, watching until Mrs. Peterson disappeared into the elevator, a sour taste in my mouth. That night at dinner, I was quiet, my mind elsewhere. Claire spoke up suddenly. You know, that old woman called me Claire. She picked at her food with her fork. It's been a long time since anyone called me that. I just grunted in response. Back then, only my grandmother and... She trailed off, not finishing the sentence. But I knew who she meant. And E. Only the people closest to her ever used her first name so familiarly. She pushed her food around her plate, then asked casually, Ethan, did you have any special nicknames growing up? My hand, holding my fork, froze. I looked up at her. She was watching me, her expression placid, but her eyes held something else, something searching. The air in the room felt thick, heavy. I looked back down at my plate. No, I said, I wasn't a very social kid. 7 the name, E hung in the air between us, a needle that had just punctured the thin, fragile membrane of our pretend peace. Claire's hand was still outstretched, her trembling fingertips just inches from my face. She stared at me, her eyes wide, a chaotic storm of emotions swirling within them. Shock, confusion, disbelief, and a sliver of raw, cutting anger. What did you just call me? My own voice sounded raspy and foreign. I wanted to play dumb, but I knew it was useless. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Then, she stumbled backward, hitting the shoe cabinet with a soft thud. "It's you," she breathed, the words forced from between her teeth. "It's really you." She repeated it, her gaze raking over my face like a blade, trying to peel back the skin of Ethan White to see the E hiding underneath. "You lied to me." Her voice began to tremble, thick with unshed tears she was fighting to hold back. Her eyes were already turning red. "Claire, let me explain." I reached for her instinctively. She recoiled as if burned. "Don't touch me." Her voice was sharp, laced with pain. "Explain? Explain how you went from E to Ethan White. Explain how you stood by like a spectator, watching me search for you, watching me act like a complete fool over a stand-in." She couldn't continue, her chest heaving as the tears finally broke free, fat drops splattering on the floor. "Watching me pay you to pretend to be yourself?" The question landed like a sledgehammer on my heart. I knew this moment was coming. It had just arrived sooner and more catastrophically than I'd imagined. "I never meant to deceive you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady and failing. "I had my reasons for leaving 3 years ago. I had no choice." "What reasons?" she demanded, the tears still streaming, but her eyes turning cold. "What kind of reason makes you disappear without a single word? What reason makes you come back with a new name and just watch me? Ethan, or should I call you E? Did you enjoy the show? Was it fun watching me fall apart?" Her words were like icicles stabbing deep. "I didn't enjoy any of it," I said, taking a deep breath. "I came back because..." "Because of what?" "The money," she cut me off, a bitter, mocking smile twisting her lips. "Because the Emerson heiress has money now, so you decided to show up? Or did you just think this whole substitute lover game was exciting?" "Claire!" I raised my voice, a knot of frustration and pain tightening in my chest. "Don't you dare think of me like that." "Then what am I supposed to think?" she screamed, the dam of her emotions finally breaking. "Tell me. I'm a joke. I looked everywhere for you. I waited for you for 3 years. I thought something happened to you. I thought you might be dead. And you changed your name. You were perfectly fine. And you have a nerve to show up in front of me with a different identity and watch me grieve for you. Watch me do all these stupid things for you." She rushed back into the living room, snatched the contract from the coffee table, and threw it at me. The pages scattered across the floor. "A contract marriage? Huh. How pathetic. I paid my long-lost love to play the part of my long-lost love." She laughed, but it sounded more painful than crying, her shoulders shaking. "Were you laughing at me this whole time? When you saw me looking at your face and telling you how much I missed E, did that give you a sick sense of satisfaction?" "No." I grabbed her by the shoulders, forcing her to look at me. "I was never laughing at you. Every time you mentioned, it hurt me more than it hurt you." She struggled against my grip, her nails digging red marks into the back of my hands. "Let go of me, you liar. Just listen to me." My hands tightened, my voice thick with a desperate urgency. "Did you know that my family was in trouble 3 years ago? My dad owed money to loan sharks, and those thugs found me. They said if I didn't pay up, they'd come after me. And they might come after you too." Her struggling stopped for a beat. She looked up at me through her tear-filled eyes. "I had no choice. I had to run. I had to hide. I couldn't even use my real name. I was terrified they'd use you to get to me, so I couldn't say a single word to you." I was breathing heavily, laying bare the humiliating truth I had never told a soul. By the time I clawed my way out of that mess, paid off most of the debt, I finally felt safe enough to come back. I just wanted to see how you were doing. And the first thing I see is you, looking to hire a stand-in. A bitter smile crossed my face, and my hands fell from her shoulders, all my strength gone. I saw how much pain you were in, and I thought, maybe if I could just be near you for a while, even as someone else, it would be something, a way to make up for what I put you through. Claire was stunned. The anger and scorn on her face slowly melted away, replaced by a complex, dazed expression. She looked from the scattered papers on the floor to me, her tears now falling silently. The only sounds in the living room were her choked sobs and the distant hum of traffic from outside. After a long time, she finally spoke, her voice raspy. "Why didn't you tell me sooner? At first, I didn't know how. Later, I was afraid you'd hate me." I answered honestly. "Seeing you in so much pain because of you made me even more scared to tell you the truth." I was afraid that seeing me would just bring all of that back. She was silent for a long time. Then she slowly knelt, picking up the scattered pages of the contract one by one. Her movements were slow, weighted with exhaustion. She placed the neat stack of papers back on the coffee table. Without another look at me, she turned and walked toward her bedroom. At the doorway, she stopped, her back still to me. "Ethan," she said, using my new name, "I need some space." "Okay." The bedroom door clicked shut. It shut me out, and it shut out the past, leaving it stranded with the present in the empty living room. I stood there, watching the closed door, feeling like I just lost a war. Everything ached. That night, separated by a wall, neither of us slept. The next morning, I heard the soft click of her bedroom door opening. I stood in the doorway of my own room, hesitating. She saw me and froze for a moment. Her eyes were slightly swollen, her face pale. Our gazes met and then quickly darted away. The air was thick with an awkward, suffocating silence. Without a word, she walked to the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water. I cleared my throat, trying to break the tension. "Do you want anything for breakfast?" She kept her back to me, gripping the glass. "No, thanks. I'm not hungry." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "I'm heading to the office." She put down the glass, grabbed her bag, and walked to the front door. "Claire," I called out. She stopped at the door, but didn't turn around. "That contract. If you want, we can terminate it," I said quietly. "I'll figure out a way to pay you back." She was silent for a few seconds before opening the door. "We'll see." The door closed softly behind her, leaving me alone in the crushing silence. In the days that followed, we fell into a strange, kind of cold war. She actively avoided me, leaving early and coming home late. When we did cross paths in the condo, she rarely made eye contact and words were sparse. We were like two strangers sharing a roof, more distant than we had been before she knew the truth. I knew she needed time to process everything, and it seemed, could do nothing but wait. I tried to work on my design projects, but my focus was shot. My mind kept replaying the image of her crying that night. On Friday evening, she came home a little earlier than usual. She was carrying a grocery bag. This was a first. She never cooked. She saw me in the living room, hesitated for a second, then walked straight to the kitchen and began unpacking. I waited a moment before walking over and leaning against the doorframe. "Need a hand?" She didn't look up, continuing to wash a tomato under the faucet. "I'm fine." The silence stretched again. I watched her chop the tomato, her movements a little clumsy and unfamiliar. She was never one for the kitchen. "You learn how to cook?" I asked, trying to start a conversation. "Can't starve to death," she replied, curtly. The knife hit the cutting board with a steady rhythm. After a moment, she spoke again, her voice quiet but clear. "I had someone look into it yesterday." My heart clenched. 3 years ago, a group of guys were, in fact, looking for your dad. And for you. She turned off the water and turned to face me, wiping her wet hands on her apron. "So you weren't lying?" I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding and nodded. "Yeah." She turned back around and started whisking eggs in a bowl. The kitchen was filled with the sound. After another long moment, with her back still to me, she said, "It must have been hard back then." My throat suddenly felt tight. I never expected that to be the first warm thing she'd say to me. "It's over now," I managed to say. She didn't say anything else, just started cooking. The smell of food filled the air, bringing with it a sense of normalcy that had been missing for days. I watched her, and I felt something hard inside me start to soften. Dinner was quiet, but the suffocating tension had eased. I did the dishes afterward without being asked. She didn't object, just sat on the living room sofa, staring blankly at the TV. When I came out, drying my hands, she spoke. "The contract. We don't have to terminate it." I stopped, looking at her. She met my gaze. Her eyes were still complicated, but calmer than before. "The 3 months aren't up," she said, her eyes shifting back to the television. "And I still have to answer to my parents." "Okay," I replied. I knew it wasn't just about her parents. This was an olive branch, a truce that gave us both time to stand still and figure out what we were to each other now. Life returned to a semblance of normalcy, but something was different. She stopped deliberately avoiding me. Sometimes we'd watch TV together in the living room at night, still not talking much. She'd ask about my design projects. I'd ask how work was. We were like roommates again, but with a fragile, unspoken connection between us. That weekend, her mom called and invited us over for dinner. In the car, she reminded me, "Don't let anything slip in front of my mom." I know, I nodded. This time, the visit felt different. Her mom held my hand and talked nonstop. She told me Claire had a stubborn streak and asked me to be patient with her. She told me about how Claire used to get sick all the time as a child. She even pulled out old photo albums, pointing out pictures of a little Claire with pigtails and a goofy grin. Claire looked uncomfortable. "Mom, why are you digging up all this old stuff?" Her mom shot her a look. "What's wrong with showing Ethan? I'm sure he'd love to hear all your embarrassing stories." I smiled, looking at the photos of the little girl I never knew. It softened something inside me. This was a part of her past I had missed. During dinner, her mom kept piling food on my plate. "Eat up, Ethan. You're too thin." Claire muttered under her breath. "Mom, he's fine." Her mom ignored her and ladled a bowl of soup for me. "You two should hurry up and give me a grandchild." I nearly choked on my soup. Claire's face flushed crimson. "Mom, what are you talking about?" On the drive home, she was still flustered. "That's just my mom. Don't take it seriously." "It's okay. She's nice," I said, looking out at the passing city lights. I paused. "You were pretty cute as a kid." She didn't answer for a moment, but in the reflection of the car window, I thought I saw the corner of her mouth twitch into a small smile. A few days later, I had to go out of town for a small project for a couple of days. I told her before I left. She was painting her nails and didn't look up. "Oh, what time's your flight?" 3:00. "Travel safe." Her tone was still flat. I packed my bag and was at the door when she called out. "Hey." I turned back. She had finished one hand and was gently blowing on her nails. "The weather's supposed to get cold there. Did you pack a jacket?" "I did." "Good." She looked down and started on the other hand. "Text me when you land." "Okay." As I closed the door behind me, the world outside felt a little brighter. During the 2 days I was away, we exchanged a few texts. They were simple. "Landed." "Okay." "It's raining here. Did you bring an umbrella?" "Yeah." It was like talking to casual acquaintance, but compared to the icy silence from before, it was a world of difference. The day I came back, my flight was delayed. It was late at night by the time I got home. I unlocked the door quietly, trying not to wake her. But a small lamp was on in the living room. On the dining table was an insulated container with a note tucked under it. "There's some soup in the pot if you're hungry." The handwriting was hers. I stood there for a long time, just looking at the container and the note. A warmth spread through my chest, like steeping in warm water. I knew the ice was melting, slowly, but it was happening. Then the real turning point came on a night I never saw coming. She had a work event and had too much to drink. When I went to pick her up, she could barely stand, leaning heavily on a coworker. When she saw me, she broke into a silly grin. "Ethan, you're here." I helped her into the car and buckled her seatbelt. She was quiet the whole way home, her head resting against the window, her eyes closed. Back at the condo, I practically carried her into her bedroom and helped her lie down. I was about to get her a glass of water when she grabbed my wrist. Her grip wasn't strong, but it was determined. "Don't go," she mumbled, her eyes still closed. "Eh? Don't leave again." My heart felt like it had been squeezed by an invisible hand. That name, coming from her lips again, softened by alcohol and vulnerability, was devastating. I knelt by the bed, looking at her flushed cheeks. "I'm not leaving," I said softly, gently brushing a strand of damp hair from her forehead. "I'm just getting you some water." She seemed to understand and let go. When I came back, I helped her sit up and drink a little. She leaned against me, quiet and pliant. After drinking, she didn't lie back down right away. She just stayed there, resting her head on my chest, and mumbled, "I think. I'm always a mess in front of you. The first time I got drunk, you were the one who carried me home. Remember?" "I remember. How could I forget? It was her birthday." She'd had too much to drink with her friends and was crying, refusing to go home until I came to get her. I carried her on my back for what felt like miles. She alternated between crying and laughing, telling me, You're the best. That time, you were just like this." She murmured, snuggling closer into my arms, her voice getting quieter. "You even smell the same." Her words were like a feather brushing against my heart. I looked down at her sleeping face, so close to mine. Her long eyelashes cast soft shadows on her cheeks. The alcohol had melted away her usual pride and distance, leaving behind a soft, unguarded woman. The woman from my memories. In that moment, the contract, the lies, the stand-in, none of it mattered. All that mattered was her here in my arms, and the realization that I had never for 1 second stopped loving her. The thought was both bitter and intensely warm. I gently laid her back down and pulled the covers over her. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, just watching her. When I was sure she was sound asleep, I started to get up. But as I moved, her hand shot out, unconsciously grabbing the hem of my shirt, just like she did on that stormy night, all those years ago. I sighed and sat back down. This was fine. I leaned against the headboard, her hand still holding on to me, and closed my eyes. The next morning, I woke up to the sun on my face. When I moved, I realized Claire was already awake, just lying there, watching me. We were close, so close I could see my own reflection in her eyes. Her gaze was clear, no trace of a hangover, just a sleepy sort of curiosity and something else, something probing. I finally registered our position, me slumped against the headboard, her hand still clutching my shirt. The atmosphere became instantly charged and awkward. I cleared my throat, trying to subtly pull my shirt free. You're awake. Is your head killing you? She didn't let go. In fact, her grip tightened. Her eyes were locked on mine. Ethan. Yeah. You were here all night, weren't you? Yeah. You wouldn't let me leave. I told her the truth, feeling a bit embarrassed. She was silent for a moment, then asked, Did you dream? I blinked. I don't think so. What? Her expression shifted into something complex, disbelief with a touch of shyness. I think I heard you talking in your sleep. My stomach dropped. I had a bad feeling about this. What did I say? She propped herself up on her elbow, moving closer, and said, slowly and clearly, You said, Claire, I love you. My mind went completely blank. Did I say that? How could I? Looking in her eyes, I knew I was caught. After all this time, all the pretense, it was over. Under her clear, steady gaze, I couldn't deny it anymore. I let out a resigned sigh and met her eyes. Yes, I said, Claire, I love you. Then and now. It never changed. After the words were out, I felt like a prisoner awaiting his sentence. How would she react? With anger? Scorn? Would she push me away again? Claire didn't say a word. She just looked at me, a light dancing in her eyes. Then before I could process what was happening, she leaned in and gently, softly, kissed me. It was a light, fleeting touch, but it sent an electric shock through my entire body. I froze. She pulled back a little, a blush rising on her cheeks, but her eyes were brighter than I had ever seen them. You've owed me that, she said, her voice a soft, clear whisper that held the weight of years. For 3 years. Ethan White, you liar. Your punishment is to spend the rest of your life making it up to me. Epilogue. We never mentioned the 3-month contract again. It expired and became void. I didn't leave, and she didn't ask me to. We went down to City Hall and replaced the hollow marriage certificate with a real one. This time, there was no contract. Only us. The sun was shining when we walked out. She kept looking at the new certificate, a smile playing on her lips. Hey, Ethan. Yeah. You're officially Mr. Emerson now, you know, she said, her tone teasing and triumphant. I smiled and took her hand, lacing our fingers together. Yes, I am, Ms. Emerson. I'm all yours. We'll see how you do, she said, swinging our joined hands. After a moment, she asked, By the way, that name you were using, Ethan White, where did that come from? It was random. My mom's maiden name was White. And Ethan. I paused, looking at her. I guess I felt that getting a second chance to meet you was the greatest, most unexpected gift I'd ever get. She stared at me for a second, then broke into a radiant smile, her eyes curving into crescents. You're so cheesy. After a beat, she added softly, but I got the gift too. Much later, I asked her when she had started to suspect it was me. Before Mrs. Peterson showed up? Or after? She was lying in my arms, lazily flipping through a magazine. Honestly, I had a feeling for a while. Oh, the way you'd look at me sometimes, it was different. And your little habits, the way you talk. She turned and poked my chest. But the biggest clue was the night of the thunderstorm. When you told me, it's over now. You said it exactly the way he did when he used to comfort me. Then why didn't you call me out sooner? Because I was mad, she said, glaring at me. I wanted to see how long you were going to keep up the act. I just didn't realize what a stubborn liar you are. I laughed and pulled her closer. Good thing I finally broke. And in the quiet light of that morning, I let the love I had buried for years come tumbling out. Outside, the sun was bright. The world was peaceful. We had taken the longest, most painful detour, only to end up right back where we started. Together.